Good afternoon, everybody. You hear me all right? Yeah.
Yep.
1, 2.
Good afternoon. My name is, everyone live?
1, 1.
My name is Motevalli. I'm the director of the William Grant Still Art Center, and we're celebrating 30 years of Rocking the Nation. And for my definition, it's an art collective, an artist collective that has been making public art for 30 plus years. I mean, everyone in the group has been making art for longer than 30 years. But I think the direction we're going to take in terms of talking today is really talking about how the artists on this table up here, but also in the group entirely, have been creating public art and creating space for other people to come and make public art for these entire 3 years. So we're going to come from that perspective. The exhibition, you'll have a chance to see the whole exhibition. It opened last weekend, and it's really, I mean, everything we've gotten back, every bit of feedback that we've gotten back is really, really positive. And I want to make sure we know who curated the exhibition. It's Ace right there. He's a member of Rocking the Nation. And by curation, I mean, of course, he was consulting with the crew. He was talking quite a bit with Create, but he also designed the exhibit. Yeah. So a lot of times you'll go to the museum, someone will curate it, someone else will design it, but he designed it, he painted a lot of it, and he curated it, and he was hanging a lot of it too. So he did a lot on the show. He was really working not just here during the hours that he was here, but he was also working outside of the hours that he was here, because he's so dedicated, and he has always been very dedicated to the crew. So with that said, I did my little intro on the exhibition. I'm going to tell you just a little bit more about the center, and then I'm going to let everyone else kind of introduce themselves, and we'll jump right into a conversation. The Art Center here, the William Grant Still Art Center, is named after Dr. William Grant Still, one of the people who changed contemporary music in America. I really encourage you to look him up. If you have Spotify, there's a Spotify page. You can look up his music on YouTube or wherever. And we try and live up to his legacy. We put on exhibitions. We've been around since 1977. We put on exhibitions. We have classes. We have workshops. We have discussions. And we find ways to creatively engage the community, and have been doing it for a very long time. We are not the first place to bring culture to the community. It's been here for a very long time, but we're definitely a staple in the community. So we're here for classes. And if you're part of RTN crew and you have children, RTN crew gets free classes right now. So please sign them up, sign them up. So that's the introduction to our center. And on to our next panelist, the founder.
That's the mic. Good afternoon, everybody. I go by the name of Create. I've been doing art ever since I was 5 years old. I just turned 46 strong yesterday, so, you know, it's 46 strong, not old, but strong. And, you know, it's a pleasure and an honor to be here first and foremost. I didn't get into graph until at the age of 9 years old. Back in '82, I was doing it on paper. The first time I ever picked up a spray can, I was 13 years old. So, you know, man, it's been a long journey for me to be able to do this as a hobby and as a career. And so, you know, me actually, RTN was founded, you know, 1989 roughly, and you know, it's been quite a journey. I'm the president, and the reason why I'm the president of the crew is because I'm part of the original 5, but the rest of the members that was the original really didn't stick in there or hang on in there. So, you know, I consider myself the president because I have the knowledge and the wisdom about a lot of the stuff, the origins of where we come from, and then also from the South Central community. I'm very knowledgeable about the history of our legacy from that side of town with our artwork. So that's why, you know, I'm the president of the crew, and it's like I said, it's been a journey with bringing a lot of different talented artists within the crew. That it's like a Voltron, how they all form together, and it's a real powerful entity. So that's my spiel on it for right now.
All right, I'm Mark Seven, one of the members of RTN. I could say, in my mind, I think I've been a part of RTN for at least 28, 29 years. I would say maybe about another 15 years ago, 12 years ago. When did we start everything back up as far as when I joined back in, like directly joined on with the Slauson thing?
It had to be late 90s.
Was it the late 90s thing?
Mid-90s,
Mid 90s. Okay, it was about the time we did the magazine, Rap Age, etc. Okay. Yeah. So then that was been in the late 90s, 96, 97 era. What can I say? I mean, when these brothers came around, I really, really enjoyed what they were trying to do. They were trying to carry the legacy of the art, holding down Los Angeles, you know, and coming from out of the sectors that we came from, there was a lot of different things trying to distract us and take us out of the focus of the arts, period. So one thing that I enjoyed about when these brothers came along was they stayed focused. They shrewd off the negativity, and anything that they could do to preserve and build on the craft. That's what they brought. What I did in being a part of it is I'm an elder to them by a couple of years. I shared whatever I knew about the culture and what was happening around Los Angeles, and worked along with them. They kind of brought a second breath to what we were doing in the 80s, and so I just built on and continued to grow with these brothers, whether it was through art, music, etc., being on the scene and supporting, you know, what RTN is about. So that's me, Mark 7.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Please forgive my voice. I'm just getting over a cold, so you'll have to deal with it just for a short time. But I go by the name of Dimmer One, also AKA Oz Matthews. I am the vice president of Rockin' the Nation crew. I joined the crew in '89, but my brother Create and I, we've been associated through various crews prior to '89, '88, and '87. I got my start within Graph, I'd say roughly about '86, although I was introduced to it in '84, right around the time of the Summer Olympics. I won a scholarship to attend USC, and it was for a young up-and-coming art group. So little did I know, my mom actually took one of my drawings that I was doing and submitted it to it, and I actually got a scholarship to participate at USC. That's when I actually learned about Graph itself through some of the older guys who were probably about 3 years my senior, but nevertheless they were a little bit more knowledgeable about it. Coming into '86, it brought itself back up again, and I took to it, and it was something I kind of was doing just as a pastime hobby. I come from the bus riding era. For anybody out there who knows about the bus riding, the RTDs, that bus was our enemy, and we made certain we put our names up and represented ourselves. So through that, Create and I had come up through various crews, but they were very loosely organized, and we didn't never get to meet each other until about '89, although we had been affiliated and associated those years past. So at this point, I'll digress and pass on, and we'll talk a little bit more about our crew.
All right.
Hello, my name is Roderick 169 Ferris. I consider myself, I guess, an old school writer. I go back as far as '84, probably maybe even '82. The break dancer first. Natural progression was to be a graffiti artist next, or MC. Don't have the musical talent. My older brother JMD had all that, so I went into Graph. Like Create and other brothers, I've been drawing since I was maybe 6 or 7 or even younger. I used to take classes over at St. Elmo's Village, as a kid. That happened through LAUSD at the time. Field trips. My mom was the office manager at the school, and that was her way of kind of working, being a single parent, and sending me to where I needed to go. His name was Roderick also, so we had that connection. At the same time, I was probably walking right past Mark, which was lived in that neighborhood. We met years later. I think I met Mark first out of the group. My family were big time bowlers at Midtown, and one day I decided to hop the fence by Builders Emporium and catch a tag, and Mark 7 was there. We became friends probably even before that because we had a battle. I was a little wild junior high school talking about how good I was, and a cousin, I think, a friend, we had this battle, and we met that way. Me and Create met through similar things. He was a popper at the time. I was a breaker. He had a friend that was a breaker, and I was fresh from coming back and forth to New York, so I had a particular style, and everybody wanted to test it, and so we did that. From the Fox Hill to Radiotron, but I'm a Vermont Square guy out in the district area, along with Ben and Aid and these cats. Little part of the town where people didn't think Graph existed at the time. You know what I'm saying? We kind of held that side of the town when everybody thought it was the West Side, alongside with another brother that I wish was here was Danny Clever. Real good guy, was also a mentor like this gentleman. And I'm here now through kind of like a divine intervention. I lost a child in 2012, myself and my wife. And I coach high school sports, been doing that for about close to 20 years, and found myself just kind of in the days on the sideline. My father-in-law one day was sitting in the backyard. He said, "Son, you need to find yourself." And I didn't know what he meant by that. Later on that evening, I took some of my brother-in-law's markers that he had from college when he's at Notre Dame, drew something up, and I put it on social media and kind of went bonkers. I started getting hits from different people, and the next day, literally the next day, I drove by the Slauson tracks leaving my mother's house. And these two gentlemen were out painting, and I knew them. I was like, because I hung out with these kids, you know what I'm saying? And Create would reach out to me over a 30-year span. He would go by my mother's house, almost religiously every year, like, Rod needs to draw, Rod needs to do, he's part of LA history, and it's so important. But I had my issues with hip hop and everything during the 90s and tag banging and whatever, so I didn't want to be part of it. But he brought me back in and fell into the brotherhood again. I've been painting ever since. I'm able to spread the knowledge of graffiti and the true history of it to young people every day. They have a misconception of it through working through the schools, which is awesome. And I just want to thank these gentlemen for keeping me down and sliding me back, rocking the nation and crew, and we've been doing it ever since.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. And Ace, man, thank you, man. This is an amazing exhibit, dude. Like,
Definitely amazing.
Yeah, man.
I can't tell you, like, the way that you did, like, I would slide through and try to, hang for a second in between being at work and sliding through, and I would see this guy, man. I've never seen an artist work so diligent at something.
Yeah.
When it deals with other artists, individually, you see guys, they put all the energy in themselves, but like to see the selflessness is amazing. And just watching him, over the last 5 years, man, if you don't know, you need to go check this cat out, man. He's a heavy cat.
Yes, he is. Yeah.
Thank you.
That's some of his artwork right there. Very complex with the pen.
So I know there's a lot of conversation around, I guess, not that I don't want to, I do want to get into the topic of graffiti art, but I really want to focus on all of you guys as artists in the trajectory of being American artists and contributing to American art history. So I want to talk with you about who your inspirations were there artists that really affected you? What were you seeing that really made you, somewhere in your heart, in your gut? Because I'm a visual artist too, so I know that's what happens, right? Somewhere in your heart and your gut. What inspired you? And then we'll get into the more like political stuff of, but where's the inspiration? Where did it come from?
I guess we could go in the order, and it'd be interesting to hear about our influences. As a young kid growing up, I was born in the early 70s, but I'm a product of the 80s. growing up watching Good Times, watching Ernie Barnes artwork on television with the record cover, the Marvin Gaye record cover, listening to like funk music and looking at the artwork on record covers back then was very unique to me. Like Cameo record covers, Lakeside record covers. And when I would look at those different illustrations and the cartoons and the comic books, it gave me some motivation back then to even want to draw. It was something about the style. That was way before I was doing style writing. But also, the flip side to that, my uncle was an artist and he could draw real good, so I was inspired as a little kid watching him draw at his art table. Moving forward, this sounds a little weird, but it's very interesting because growing up as a kid in what they call the ghettos or the inner city, gang writing was artistic back then. So when I would look at, not the gang writing today, but the gang writing back then had way more style to it. It had a certain type of finesse to the way the artwork was done with the spray can for only 2 colors they was using. When I saw the New York type style influence of graph, that's what took me to a whole different level, because then I saw more color, I saw more of a way of approaching it. And so that took me to the next level. Now, bringing it back to LA, then I see people like Mark Seven, like he said, he's one of our elders in terms of style, because as a kid, he was already doing stuff that was like, we was like, damn, how he do that? And I used to go to the yard personally, stand there and just look at the artwork that he was doing on the wall along with some of his crew members from another crew that he's part of. I was looking at the work, studying it, and I was the kind of person, I would soak stuff up like a sponge and really embrace it and learn from it. I was the kind of graffiti artist or writer, I would travel around the city. I didn't just stick in my neighborhood. I would go to East LA, I would go to West LA, and I would go to Hollywood, and I would go through the whole city, take photos with a 110 camera back in the day, and I would develop them, and then I would go home and sit for hours. My mom would say, boy, go to bed, it's 12 o'clock at night. And I would turn off the light and still look at the pictures in the dark. So that just goes to show how passionate it was, about doing it. So that's my take on it.
All right, echo from Mark 7. The furthest back I'm going to be able to take it, my sister was an initial influence. She used to draw, and my cousin Sean. And they had a real unique way of doing their own art. My sister had on the walls by our bed a lot of cutout pages from Mad Magazine and comic books like that. So that was where a lot of early influence was drawn. At that time, you might have seen in comic books the POW, the Zoom, like that stuff with structured letters with powerful imagery or aesthetics to kind of give that action to it. So that was one of the initial things. By the time we were in kindergarten, there was always this competition thing with other kids that could draw. So that's
You were being inspired before kindergarten?
Yeah, yeah, before kindergarten and then into kindergarten.
Wow.
So right here up the street, 7th Avenue, 17th Street, which goes into the 7th. So we were drawing Hot Wheels at this point on the little squares on the sidewalk, and you could tell whose car was whose by the way they drew their cars, So it was like taking the Hot Wheel idea of playing with them into now drawing them. From that point, it was the walls, the street, the gang graffiti. And once again, even for what we've seen in the different gang lettering, there was characterism, eyes, mouths, I could tell you which gangs they were, but that's not so much important as much as the characterism that I seen in the lettering. That was very influential, and it was cool art. That's how we looked at it. It was cool. This is when Nito and the words bad was, relevant. Then there was the stickers and decals that went with the hot rod car things, to give you an example, there was, for air shocks, there was this rabbit one. I think they used to sell it at Pep Boys, and it had this hijacked up rabbit legs, or then there was the artist, let me get his name right, he used to do Rat Pink. These cartoons, oh my God, this dude was amazing. So those were some of the initial influences like that as I went on, other than the gang stuff, because the gang stuff was very prevalent, and you sing, with lettering, you're seeing a lot of calligraphy styles, but then you're seeing styles that people are creating. Like, you know the alphabet, there's like maybe 10 different ways, different fonts, but you're seeing people create fonts. And that was innovative, and that's something I wanted to be a part of. As we begin to see that happening with the New York graffiti style versus LA graffiti style, it was more of like an open realm to be more creative. So I definitely took on to that. Mural painters that were very influential was Roderick Sykes. Would see the different work that he had. I remember I think it was right here by Olympic and the Bread. There was a blue chip stamp place. He had some artwork on that. I, just like Rod, attended here at St. Elmo Village. I used to initially go with my mom when she would go to boat, but then got a chance to check out some of the classes and stuff. The ground was painted, like it took me back to, yeah, it took me all the way back to when we were doing it, and it was like amazing. That place was like a castle. That was our own Watts Tower, for this section. But so there was a lot of influential artists, but those painting those significant murals aside of the freeways where we would see those large paintings done, all up and down Broadway. There was all kind of murals all through Los Angeles, right? And so then by the time you get a chance to go to Boyle Heights and different ones, it's still stuff up, So like I knew that's what I wanted, and I wanted to be around kids that was into that. So that's where my influence is, I guess.
Well, my influences started very early. When I speak to my mom about it, she would say, probably when I was able to learn how to hold a crayon. And from that point, it's just something very instinctively with children and art and using creativity. You don't have to tell them anything. They just get there and they just start doing it. So that's kind of where I come from. And I remember this one time distinctively when I took one of the crayon and started drawing on the wall. I got in trouble. I got a big spanking behind it, but it's just something so naturally just for a person to take a marker or something and just go to the wall and just start to draw. And I did this day, and I got in trouble for it. And after that, she bought me a ton of paper. She knew that was not going to be something that was going to go quickly away. So I was drawing things as cars and all of the other things that kids would be interested in. But in '82, I moved to Los Angeles. Coming from Galveston, Texas, which is just a little island. The biggest city would be Houston. I'm coming from a small little island coming into a big place called Los Angeles. And I'd only knew about it from movies and TVs. And I was like, man, I'm moving into Hollywood, But when I got here, one of the things that immediately stuck out was how much writing on the wall it was. I moved into east side of Los Angeles, east side off 48th and Hooper, and man, that area was surrounded by so much tags, and a lot of it was gang influence tags, but as my partner said, it was very stylistic. It just wasn't like what you would see today. It had a lot of style. They were drawing things like Playboy bunny rabbits, and it kind of just stuck to me. It was like, wow. And there was no way in the world you could have told me in '82 that was not legal. For as much time as they put into it, drawing these big block up letters, you could not tell me that they did not have permission to do that. But I distinctively remember getting in trouble behind it for myself, so there was something that kind of let me know that it probably wasn't authorized. But anyway, in '84, again, I ended up at USC, and I saw these kids drawing B-boys. When I saw these B-boys, which stands for break boys, these characters actually looked like people from my community. I looked and said, damn, that looks like someone I could actually see walking down the street. They had sunshades on, they had Kango hats, and it was something I could actually identify. Now, all the art form that I had been seeing up until there were masters and all of these other things, but it couldn't relate to me. It didn't really have an attachment to me. But seeing that B-boy standing there with his arms posed, it spoke volumes to me. And I began my journey of trying to emulate that and draw in that style manner. Later on, I then started to see it get more progressive, and I would go to places like the Jefferson Yard and see Mark's work and seeing Clever's work. who were on my side of town, but like Create, I ventured out of my neighborhood and I ended up at the Sunset Yard, KSN Yard, I believe it was, the crew. Yeah, Sunset in Fairfax. And the purpose for me to go there was actually I was going there to go fight the rival crew. I was going there for the purpose of fighting. And when I entered that yard, it blew my mind. I said, oh my goodness, where did we just come to? I mean, they had images of people with glasses and you could see their eyes, but yet they were tinted glasses. And I lost it. I said, this is it. This is what I was meant to do. That same day, I ended up meeting another writer by the name of Frame, who kind of hesitantly approached us because there was about 15 of us. We were there, and we were like, we didn't know who the enemy was, so anybody who was ready to approach us was considered to be an enemy. But yet he approached us, and he was a punk rocker kind of like dude with this long hair and with mullet, yeah, with colors. And he approached, and he just simply asked us, what did we write? And I told him what I wrote, and he then handed me a flyer. He was saying, I got an art show that I'm going to be putting on within a matter of weeks from now. I would love for you guys to come and check it out. That day, I actually looked at that flyer and kept it. I ended up attending it. That was the first graph show for Los Angeles at the Los Angeles Photography Center. And what I got to see that day, that was hands down, this is what I'm supposed to do. The artwork was so amazing. I met people such as PJ, who's a brother who just passed away. His art. Another brother by the name of Cool Boy who showed me his black book. And what I saw, I mean, words couldn't explain it. But after seeing that, I knew that moment exactly what I was here for. I was all about maybe 16, if that, 15 or 16. And that day, I distinctively declared, graph is going to be my life, and I'm still doing it today.
I kind of covered how I got back into art, how I started. I think I've been drawing since I was probably a baby. I don't know, I can't go that far back, but I was drawing like Mark cars, Hot Wheels. I was a real big G-Force, if you're from that generation. Animated series that's from Japan, I think. Early NNA or whatever, I used to emulate that. But Roderick Sykes was probably, like I said, one of the bigger influence. Graph is crazy. I spent time on the East Coast, so I saw the trains as a kid, but they went by so fast. I would only recognize like Fred Flintstone, or, you know, like the characters, the letters was a blur, but I knew it was something. Hearing the music there and kind of seeing the origins of hip hop kind of starting to form before it was like international and mainstream. So I was influenced there, but I think graph, graffiti-wise, I was sitting there like, what inspired me listening to these gentlemen? Like, what inspired me to really do graffiti? Was it the trains? It wasn't. It was a movie called The Wiz. You know what I'm saying? Went on a field trip again through school to the Octagon looking building, you know, the movie theater in Hollywood. Yeah, that place, yeah. And saw The Wiz and saw the Munchkins come off the wall. And I was like, and then it made that connection what I saw as a 6 and 7 year old, you know, taking these trips to New York. I was like, oh, this is all starting to kind of make sense. A young man at the time named, went by the name of Inksky. He was a breakdancer. He was in the, with Rhyme Syndicate with Ice-T. I don't know why he was here, but he was here, and we kind of linked because he went to Manual with a neighbor of mine, and it was like, you know, Rod knows what's up with hip-hop, and, you know, I had some tapes, and he had tapes, and from there he had pictures, and I saw stuff, you know, from various boroughs like Brooklyn and stuff like that, but I was definitely influenced by LA graffiti also. Chaz. My grandmother was a big Dodger fan, so we would go to Dodger games in the summer when I was out of school, so I would see Chaz skulls and stuff on the side of the freeway, and so I was always trying to figure out, well, how did he do that? Like, was it brush, was it stencil? Well, I didn't know such thing as a stencil at the time, but that was kind of one of my other early influences was Chaz, but definitely Roderick Sykes. Like, those trips to St. Elmo's was really, really great for me, being the only child, you know, finding this outlet, you know what I mean? I didn't have brothers and sisters to jump on the bed with all the time, so you know, I was always drawing, you know, from comics, the Uncanny X-Men, you know, which I've kind of added that to who I am, Uncanny. That was one of my biggest influences. So Stan Lee and Marvel, like that particular era was really a big influence. Thank you.
people in the audience, a lot of time people who gets into this art form or this movement, some people get in for it for different reasons. Some people are frustrated, just want to let some steam off and just write their name all over the place. Some people want to be creative and do something creative for their area or the community. Then you got some people who they just do it for a fad and they just want to jump into something because it's the latest thing at the time for everybody to be doing. So me personally, I got into it for all the reasons, keep it real, you know, like I wanted to beautify. I wanted to get up and make a name for myself. That's early marketing for me, you know what I'm saying, where I made a name for myself. I wanted to, at one point in my life, be a little destructive because as a teen, you're trying to find yourself and you know, sometimes you go left instead of going right. So that being said, I mentioned that for a reason because as a young person at the age of 14 years old, I went out personally on my own. Nobody made me do it. I went out on my own and went from door to door in my area in the community. I had a little folder with my artwork in it. I made personal business cards out of regular white sheets of paper. I drew my name on it and put my services and went to Thrifties at the time and printed it, cut it out, and I went from door to door and gave people my services as a 14-year-old kid. I was a young teen. I was going from door to door asking people, you know, would you mind if I do a mural on your wall and go over the gang graffiti? So a lot of people told me, get out of here, I don't want to see that on my wall. And there was one person that gave me my first opportunity on 60th and Crenshaw. There was a burger stand called something Burgers, I can't remember. But anyway, Heinz Burger on 60th and Crenshaw. And they paid me $100 to do a mural to say burgers on the wall. And I was excited about that because I was like, man, I get a chance to do something. And people rolled by and beat the horn and told me I was doing a good job. Now, mind you, as a young kid, you know, I'm staying at home with my parents. So for me to make $100 back then was special. I was like, man, I don't have to go out and sell drugs. Like most people in them years was selling drugs, and we called them high rollers or ballers back then. And I couldn't do that because I couldn't get away with it in the house. So, not that I was trying to do it. But I said that to say that that's what distracted. But to get back on the topic, as I got older, I built a reputation for myself by doing murals in my schools, from John Muir Junior High School to Crenshaw High School, with my affiliates right here, especially like Denver as an example. We went to Crenshaw High School together. We did a lot of murals for the school. That helped build up a portfolio for me as a young teenager. When I got out of Crenshaw High School, we was talking about PJ as an example. He was one of the people with him, Mr. Cartoon, OG Abel. They say create, go to college, man, and open up your mind and expand your horizons. They told me personally, you can learn more and be even better. I was like, I never liked school. And so this I'm trying to speed the story up. So here's what's happening. When I went to Trade Technical College, I did classes there for 2.5 years and I graduated as a commercial artist, which opened up other doors for me to expand my way of thinking, of looking at how I could use my graffiti art talent and to do public art murals. And I met a gentleman by the name of Stash Mulaski in Creative Unity. And he opened up a lot of opportunities for me and other writers and artists to expand and to be able to take our art and learn how to deal with creative director, art director, learn how to be disciplined and how to take constructive criticism, because you can't take it personal when you're doing like murals for clients. If this ain't what it is, you got to go back to the drawing board and do it over and over again. You know, so that's one form of public murals. And then you got the ones where we just doing our own murals out there and we doing it for fun, for sport, and we have fun with it. So I just wanted to show you guys the difference of how we approach doing street murals or corporate murals and stuff like that.
What was the question again?
It was really talking about why you chose the realm of public. I mean, I know all of you do your own not public art. You make gallery pieces and all of that. But I really want to look at why you decided to make public art, and then to push it further, why public art that is considered illegal.
We said we were looking at it for legal purposes. No,
Right,
but okay.
Whatever.
No, but yeah,
whatever direction you
just.
want to
I mean, there's all forms of expression, and obviously, you know, in my adolescence, anything was fair game once we were writing on the street or we're seeing tags and whatever, you know, so there was that. But for it to be more interesting eye-wise is to have, I mean, maybe that was like an ego thing, like, well, I see that space there, and if I took the time and created something really unique, it would definitely do something for my ego, but it would definitely be pleasing to everyone else's eye. That was kind of a thing. Like there was an alley where I stayed off of 7th Ave. There was like a little wood shed. I guess the gang dudes used to hang in there and leave books around and stuff. And I would see like, okay, I'd see tags and writing gang stuff, but I would think, what if I, you know, did a word like pow or something cool, you know, whatever was cool at the time, and I went in like and added that shadow to it, or maybe did the 3D to it, that made it so prominent that people liked me because of it. So I guess for attention, I used to do a lot of art in school for attention. Taking that to the wall was a challenge because you wanted to be able to create it just as well as you could do on paper onto a wall. So that became where in the locations around the neighborhood could I find to put my own. That was also based on influence of other people like Soon, one which was a cat from New York that was doing stuff in the local areas, and his art was advanced beyond some people that were doing it. He had certain techniques and styles that was innovative, definitely, but inspiring, because now you, like they said, going to see art anywhere, you're wondering, well, how did you do that? What did he do? Like, he's using spray paint, obviously, because you can see the colors and where he's writing with them. But how did he make it look like you did that with a paintbrush? He taped it off, masked it. How do you do that? You know, and no one's just going to tell you that. You know, it was hard to actually find someone to mentor you, to school you on that. So.
And that was before all the different tips and all that, right?
Yeah, exactly. That was. And then as tips came out, people didn't want to tell you where to find those at. So, and it's like this young man, I did the same thing up and down Venice and around La Brea, trying to ask people. There was a guy on like 4th Ave in Venice who let me paint his automotive place. He was one of the first places. The other was a gas station. They didn't. And I did it illegally, and I painted like a Q*bert B-boy character. But that was for the local kids who could come back there and say, you know, somebody might go back there to use the restroom and say, oh, look! You know?
Right.
Oh, wow, look at that! That's something. And there it was, you know, me with my tag. So that's why it was like a mixture of trying to get legals and then some illegal. The name writing, like all up and down the streets and all around like that, there was a two-sided thing with that. Part of that is the fame, and you see me, you know, it's branding, you know, like continuously. But there's a style to it. And then there's that dangerous element of, I might get caught, you know, and this, once again, we're talking about, I'm not pushing nothing for elders. But I was a young person, kind of experimenting and trying different things. And I got caught up right here up the street doing it, and I learned from it. And the little roll call of everyone's names, and I got pulled over and everyone walked away, and here I am writing everyone's name, and the police is like, what are you doing? You know, so here in Washington, I'll never forget that. But then I just kind of said, okay, so much with all the running and tagging, you know, let me focus on the time work pieces that are in people's faces. Now, what could I do with that? I mean, it's one thing to make something for the store, and can I make something thought-provoking? Can I make something that's pleasing beyond just pleasing, like, oh, it makes you smile, you know, stuff for children, make them happy. Cars, like once I got to the Crenshaw wall, and at that point, I think it was pre-meeting Snake Doctor and doing the memorial for Rest in Peace Clever.
Well.
Yep, Snake Doctor.
Yeah.
Oh man, seeing this brother's artwork. That's an inspiration right there, you know. But and
Well,
thank
we
God
have
we
amazing
had.
artists here today.
Oh, yeah,
so
yeah,
it's,
definitely.
It's a great.
Yeah, and you know what? And then it took some years before I met Noni. You know what I mean? And her work was always strongly influential, you know. And so we're very prided to be amongst them. But just as far as when I got the chance to do the Crenshaw the first times, it was trying to be cool. And when I would paint, like I did a Suzuki Samurai. A lot of people still remember it from the 80s. I was putting
classic.
that car with the rims on it, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that type of stuff, trying to just put some cool stuff out there. And I think that was like taking where that element from being a kid and you would see that creating gang stuff or cool stuff, taking it and putting it in a positive twist. You know what I mean? And representing like that. And a lot of that did become promotion for album covers and stuff like that eventually. So, yeah.
For me, it was about one thing and one thing only. I was out for fame. I was strictly out for fame. It was about putting my name up everywhere and anywhere it could be possibly put. So I did a lot of stuff that was would be considered vandalism, and that's one perspective of mine. But for me, it was about putting my name out there, and I did it strictly for my peers, for other people who knew what I was about. I wasn't trying to please anybody else. I was about, hey, I wanted my friends to see it or someone who was like me to see it, and then later find out it was me. Because in the beginning, it wasn't about actually having your face associated as more as your name. It was a secret society.
Facts.
We would not share information. There was no internet, none of that stuff. You just happen to be on the bus and see somebody pull out a marker. Hey man, you right? Yeah. You know, we were meeting, that's how we met out on the streets. And that's how I met many of the people here on this panel and out in the audience. We just met simply for that. So I came about it for fame and trying to put my name out there and show people, hey, I exist. And I'm down to do this. And not everybody's down to do it. Because you were sitting on the bus looking at me wondering why I was reaching over you, trying to do it. Why was it so important for that to happen? Now, I did not have any consciousness other than just the fame. Later, consciousness sets itself in. Someone actually saw me on the bus one day, getting up, someone that maybe about 5 years older than me, and said, hey, why are you doing that? And I was like, what? Why are you doing what you're doing? And I didn't have a real legitimate answer for it. Just because, man, something to do. Passing time, I don't know. But that answer got answered later on. I started meeting some people who were very thought-provocative. I started learning about my own history, my culture, and it wasn't being taught in the schools. But yet, I found myself. And from that, I started to put some consciousness behind the artwork that I was doing. No longer was it about, for me, Dimmer One. It was more so, I need to be able to do something responsibly to tell our story and educate. So that Crenshaw wall that's out there, that was something that was birthed very much sooner than what it is, than I even had imagined. So public art kind of was already there, but then the conscious aspect of it, I'm influencing other people because that's exactly how I got influenced. I saw Mark 7. I saw those artists out on the Crenshaw wall, and it spawned in me to say, I'm going to one day do that, you know? So the consciousness came later. Public art as of today is very trendy. Everyone calls it street art. Everyone can do it now. You can see it on your social media, your cell phones. So it's a little bit more looser than it was when I got started. But I don't down it because that someone is now looking at that and thinking for themselves that, hey, one day I can do that. And for that very purpose is why I still do it and urge other people to do it.
Kind of piggyback, Dimmer. Fame thing. It was about fame. It was about, for me, it was continuing fame because I was a known breaker. So that's kind of where my name comes from. I went by Rodski as a breaker, so I just added the ER later on. I think I was Rod 1 before that, I think. And I think it was Rob 1, which I met. And he was real cool about it, but I didn't want to, I didn't need an image or anything like that. And so it was about fame for me, I guess, continuing fame. My career as a writer really was from 84 to 88, and then of course 2012 to now. From 84 to 88, I did nothing legal. Like I was all about, I guess, being a single parent, young black boy, not having a whole lot of guidance in certain things. So it was about destruction for me. It was about getting up and smashing everything. And Even being a smaller kid, the bully aspect of it, you know what I'm saying? And like Dimmer said, the conscious part comes in later on, and I think that's what made me stop. I think I was misusing the art form at the time. For me, getting into it wasn't an anger thing initially. It was, like I said, it was a breaking, hip-hop, happy, K-Day, Roll on Wheels, Fox Hill Mall, Clock Tower type thing, you know what I'm saying? Just, it was fun, and so I found myself going away from that. And so it was hard for me to kind of balance the two worlds out. I started playing sports, became a prominent athlete, and so it was balancing these two worlds was kind of hard. So, but like public space, like, it didn't matter to me, you know. The bus was a funny thing. The bus thing, I didn't write really on the outside of the bus, or even on the inside, but I wrote on the panel, you know, where the door opens up in the back, that black panel, and with my name starting with the R and ending with an R, I would just go with a white pintail and Rotter, and almost like standards. So that was my way of pounding my thing, like, because I wasn't getting up a lot, you know what I mean? Like I said, I was bused to the valley. I get home 6, 7 o'clock. These dudes gone. They're already out and about and did whatever, and so, you know, like trying, like I said, balancing the two worlds. So when I had that chance, you know, I was, you know, that was my spot. I guess I understood kind of like create, not by design, like branding. So I was branding myself, you know, like going from Rod Ski the Breaker to Rodder the graffiti artist. So it was like I didn't lose that win. It just kind of carried over. So the graffiti artists that were breakers at one time, when they could identify, they knew who I was. Like I said, my whole thing was, it was a hip hop thing for me. It wasn't, it was purely hip hop. The music went along with the art, the dance. I had a cousin, rest in peace, he was like, man, you will break, dance, graffiti everywhere we go. He's like, dude, we're on a family trip to Vegas and you're like, you know, pulling out your pad, like you're rushing to the room to get to the table. You know, we going to this place and the floor is slick. You're on your back, you know. But you know, that's what it was about, you know what I mean? And just hitting in spots, you know, like I was really secretive. I wish I documented a lot more than I did. But I guess the 14, 13-year-old Rod Ferris versus the 48, I was very arrogant. I'm like, it's gonna be there forever, you know, like nobody's gonna go over it, and you know, eventually got it gone over, and I didn't have my 110, maybe like 8. But yeah, that's pretty much like, you know, public space. It didn't really matter, you know what I mean? It was just about getting up, hanging, meeting other artists, growing. Like I said, back then it was about meeting other artists, but the secrets, you know, like people had secrets, you know, cats would literally take a step away from the wall if you hit the yard. It was like, oh, somebody's in here. Yeah. They'll put the cans down and step back, and like they'll watch you walk through. And once you're done doing your thing, then you hear the click clack again, and click clack, oh, they're going again. Yeah, that was pretty much it. I guess me being an only child and always kind of, I guess maybe thriving to have siblings and all that, I shared a lot. Like I didn't have a problem sharing anything that I found out and knew. It was like each one teach one. I'm like, hey dude, because I wanted you to be down with it, and at the same time I got something from it, and it, you know, was a building thing constantly, and that's what it still is. You know what I mean? I have a young man in the audience that's 30 plus now, I think, and I met him when he was 14, and I wasn't doing this art for him. But he came and he wanted that information, so every day he came to my desk and asked me for that information. So, you know, that was public to me because now he's doing it. It was like me being there, you know what I mean, even when I wasn't around. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. Everything legal now, I'm sorry. Everything's legal now.
Your comments brought up so many questions, additional questions for me. When I was thinking, and we don't have all day, but, and I don't want to keep you up here all day. I'm sure everyone wants to hear you all day. I'm mesmerized, but you know, in my thinking of public art, I think of the places where people pass. Those are the places where, and those little surprises, like you said, where you turn around to go pee, and you catch those little surprises. So that's super important. I know we're going to have another panel, and we are going to, because I know for me, and I know I've had conversations with some of you, the distinction between street art and graffiti is very different, right? So that's definitely present, and we'll dive into that in the next panel. Unfortunately, I won't be here, but Claudia's going to record it, so I'll be able to catch it after, and I'll send in my questions. But with that said, a lot of you talked about just the notoriety, the fame, the marketing aspect of it, right? The branding aspect of it. And when we go out and about, we're seeing branding constantly, all kinds of branding, all kinds of advertisement. So I'm going to give you kind of a two-pronged question, and then this because it's a two-pronged question, maybe it can be one of the last questions that I ask, and then we can open it up to the group. As Black men, why is it important for your name to be out there and marketed and branded and be very present? And then, as in the same light, why every single one of you, I met Create, I heard about Create a long time ago, especially from Cartoon, who would always talk about him. But I met Create when he came to my class when I was teaching at Locke High School 20 years ago with Stash. And I tell him that I have students that met him 20 years ago. Some of them are famous musicians right now that ask me still, hey, you ever see Create? You still see Create? He was that inspiring. My jaw dropped personally that day. And just the sense that not only have all of you decided that I'm going to brand myself, because I like that you came with that realness, but the fact that you held other people's hands and brought them with you, and the fact that you have decided that it's your responsibility to teach and to create a public sphere, to create an outdoor gallery, and to make space, not just for artists like yourself, but for people of color to exist and be in the public sphere. Can you kind of address that? I know I said many things right there. If you can address that.
Well, I want to start off by saying this. We come from a part of town where we're like overlooked a lot within the art spectrum of what we do. We come from a part of town where most people, they don't really want to venture into because of the stereotypes of what they heard on the media. So that's why a lot of stuff that we do, we have to go even harder, meaning put in more work, so that whatever we do, or whenever we do our work, we want it to be so powerful that if the vibration or the frequency is spoken out beyond borders of what people know about us. So that's one of the things that me and Dimmer, in our earlier development for Rockin' the Nation, we was being involved with different art shows where people would put us way in the back and say, paint that small little bitty canvas. And it was like, we would look like, man, why we can't paint one of the big ones like everybody else? They said, oh, just paint that. So me and Dimmer had an attitude that we structured and built, was that, okay, we're gonna do this little one, we're gonna make a damn good little one that's gonna be so powerful to where when people look at it, they gonna wish we was on one of the big ones to see what we could do. And so that's how we started to build our attitude, and we would be some of the last ones at the event, doing way more than most of the other people was doing where they was half-stepping. That being said, we speaking about being a voice in the inner cities of Black men, where we have to have a voice, because we living in a time now where most people are numbing and dumbing down because of the vibration or the frequency of the music that keeps them at a level. At the time we was growing up, consciousness music was something that fueled us to make us think different, make us do our artwork different, the way we carried ourselves. I would go to school with headphones on in the morning listening to Public Enemy. I would be listening to Rakim and Ice-T and stuff like that. Lethal Weapon is my mind, you know, and that kind of stuff built an attitude upon me to when I would function and do my artwork, you would see a reflection of that within my artwork. And so that was the voice through our art. They said a picture could tell 1,000 words. And so our pictures begin to speak, to where at once upon a time our art teachers say, hey, put that away, that's not art. You will not be accepted doing this kind of art form. But because of the rebelliousness in us, we was like, man, I ain't gonna put nothing away, I'm gonna keep doing it. My teacher got so upset with me, they was like, you're not gonna stop. I said, nope. And I want to say a real quick little story, because this is important. For anybody that's an art teacher in here, or a parent, and you have young kids growing up, my mom didn't want to see me do graffiti art because she felt like it was something that was connected to being a hoodlum or a thug. And I used to always have a lot of debates and arguments with my own mother about this is not art form that's going to take me down. My father, on the flip side, was very supportive of me. He used to take me to go buy spray paint. He would take me to the yard. He would actually help me fill in my letters. Most parents won't do nothing like that. So I had a supportive father that would go to the yard with me, take me to the comic book store and buy Cheap Wizard comic books. Moving forward, my art teacher in the 8th or 7th grade, one day she took my artwork because it was being passed around the room and she was doing a lecture. And she took my work and she knew it was mine because nobody in the class did graffiti art but me. And she came and stood right in front of me and she took my work and tore it into little bitty shreds and dropped it right in front of me, in front of the whole class. Now watch this. A lot of the students started laughing at me. They were laughing and my whole body temperature just got super hot. Like, man, you could cook on me, I was so hot, right? And next thing you know, that was my turning point in my life as a young artist. I said, you know what, I'm gonna prove to my teacher and anybody else who's doubting me as a young artist coming up, I'm gonna make it and I'm gonna be successful and I'm gonna rise to the top. And that's exactly what I did. So I wish I could rewind back the hands of time and go show them my achievements, but I can't. So I say all that to say, if you have young people growing up amongst you, you know, encourage them and put them in the right direction. Like, I'm very proud of a gentleman that's in the crowd. I'm not gonna say his nickname, but he, you know, it's the gentleman right there with the shades on. I met him at the age of 14. He used to come and spend like most of the weekends. I'd be at Venice Beach, and he would like ask me a lot of questions about the culture of the writing movement. And I didn't mind teaching him because people taught me and passed the torch to me. And I'm so proud because he grew up to be a decent man. You know, he's not going around acting like a fool, not that I know of. You know, but I'm proud of him. And I get to look back, like Ami was saying, students from her class ask her to this day, you have she made contact or even seen anything with me. But, you know, this is living proof. This gentleman over here and my homie over there with the hat on right there, you know, I'm proud of him. You know, one thing about me as the president of the crew, I don't allow people just to get in and not be successful. I want people in my crew to be a great success. When I met Ace, he was, I guess, what, 18? Where Ace at? Okay, Ace was, he over there? Okay. When I think I met him, he was 18 years old. And I saw the burning desire, the passion, the hunger. He was already doing art. He told me to go see his work off of Dinker near 48th Street. In between Vernon and 48. And when I saw his sketchbook, I was amazed at his work. But like now, you know, this gentleman is doing big murals and he's doing them quick. His thought process is very interesting of how he approaches a mural. You know, he's a father to his son, a husband to his wife, man. Like, that's the kind of substance, you know what I'm saying? My buddy Mark right here, he's a great father figure to his sons and his family, you know what I'm saying? And Dimmer, he's a great working man. Like, see, we're not failures out here in society just like running reckless, doing a bunch of foolishness. You know, everybody here is a working class person. I'm a self-independent entrepreneur. But Ryder down there is a great family man, a coach with sports, but we all got a passion for this art.
Yeah. Respect.
This is two questions.
I forgot. But mostly it was just to tell us why it's important for you as a black man to get your name up, to brand, and then also why it's important to create space for others.
Okay. Mark 7's the name, and yet still more. A reputation that grows like a chain of stores. It has always been in my mind, like you said, to make it impactful. What did it mean? Well, what's the quality of it? Just like A hit on, the quality of the person. You know what I mean? Like, my father did lay before me certain key things he wanted to instill within me. I lost him at a young age. I had to carry on from there, being a big brother to my younger brothers, and subsequently to the guys in my neighborhood. So the only way I could be able to do that is by example, and then pack all that into my artwork, so that not only when you see this artwork and you speak on it, like you said with Aid or any of these other brothers, you know what that stands for. Like Ryder being in our brother's life over there, you know, he brought that fatherhood, that great man, that imagery. And then culturally, what does that mean? You know, because whether we're going up against stereotypes or, you know, misnomer, we got our influences from and what made us a great black man, you know, and then of course, like you said, as the consciousness came in, where we have done whatever, whether it was shared with some of us during our growing up or the rest of us who did some researching to find out more about ourselves and our culture and what does that mean for us now, because we have to go to the past to kind of like get a grip on what was and what is, to know what's in you and within you, to project that into now. So that's where the importance is. We are aware of a lot of things that seem to be uneven, seem to be off, that we're not representing, and even though we're like maybe in a few and proud in our full community, we consistently push for that. Although some of us may have been at odds with each other, like sometimes we mention like Pedro, rest in peace, Design 9. These were brothers that I had adverse beginnings with, but it never was too bad. It didn't get. I love that brother. Me and him almost got really bad. We were able to laugh at it now. We're able to tell our children, look, we made it. We made it. You know what I mean? Like, we're still alive. We're still here. We're still able to support each other and all that. But also the significance of, you know, who we are, even at adversity. What we were able to do, we were able to shine and become stronger at what we did. So, you know, I don't know if that is off track or on point.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
I thought.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's all.
The importance of name, identification in who we are. I come amongst the people who had none of that when they were brought to this land. All of that was stripped from them, their identity, their names, and which they came from. So we took upon the names of our owners, those slave masters. Today, and even before I had this knowledge, I knew I had to create my own identity and own name. I went through many nicknames. One of my first ones was because of one of my heroes, Muhammad. I named myself Muhammad because I admired Muhammad Ali and what he was doing in the ring and his manner outside of the ring. And that just came naturally. I must have been about 5 or maybe even 6 at that time. Well, and consequently, I got into a lot of fights behind that name, because if you're going to hold that name, you better be able to fight your way. So when I moved to Los Angeles, I was told by my family I'm going to have to leave that name behind. So it stayed back in Galveston, my birthplace. And when I got here, I went through a few names trying to get to who I actually was. And the name Dimmer came about because a friend told me the names that I was writing at the time, which was like Cash, these were already people who had names for themselves and were well respected within the graph community. So he had a list, simply gave me a list of names that I could try, and I took on Dimmer, and I've been holding that since. And I think it's very important that we start to create our own identities. When the media and everybody else is trying to tell you who you are, what you are, you have to find for yourself and find out deep within who you are. And even if it's at the smallest beginning of it, you may not know the purpose of it. Later on, it reveals itself. Mm-hmm. So having a name and creating a name, a brand, make certain it's one, honestly, who you are, and keep the integrity of it. So these are the things that I've learned through graph. I've since then changed over my name more so to my actual birth name, which is Matthew Osbury, and I've rearranged it. And it came because of social media. I wasn't too, I didn't have quite trust in it. So when I started out, I chipped up my name and started with my last name, abbreviated, Oz. And then my first name, Matthews, became Matthews, as if it was my last. So this was just, again, protecting my identity. But even since then, it's something that I'm still proud of because it does honor my family. And more importantly, it honored my ancestors and being respectful for them. And the name Oz, as far as I was told, it was French, but it has a new meaning because I've created it. I've now put a new name to it. And there's only one me, may have similar names, but that's what I've made for it. And I hope it creates a legacy that will be respected by my elders, ancestors, and my future.
For me, I think more so hearing that when people think of graph, they don't think of African American man or black man. So I know that's mainly at this point in juncture of my life why I do it also is to let people know that we do this, we've done this. Don't forget.
Don't forget.
Remember the name.
So that has a lot of it, a lot to do with it. Like I said, also like I keep regurgitating, going back to like I said, Robert's St. Elmo's Village. So it was already instilled early. Like I said, single parent, but I grew up with my grandmother, my great aunt, and them being from the South. Knowing the struggles that they had, not having a male around, they instilled who I was from day one. So I knew. And still do. A lot of people forget who they are. But when it comes to graph, it's my color schemes. If you look at them, it's kente cloth. It's this is something I've never said out loud, but this is what it is. Most of my stuff is based from Bob Marley albums. That's why I pick my color schemes. I call this brother the color doctor. I shoot a sketch to him and he'd be like, look, you need to come at this way. And it's funny because it always has these rhythms to them, these drum beats, and I hear ancestors and I hear this, so that's why my letters rock a certain way. What I did last Saturday, I watched this documentary on the Panthers, and was influenced through that. It was my Huey piece, is what I call it. It's all grit and elbow and rocking the nation, reinventing the narrative, of who we are and who we are in this art form.
Can I go ahead and open it up? And
Yes.
any questions? Any questions out of the really inspiring information? Yes, Noni.
Are you guys okay with the term graffiti artist, or are you planning on changing it? Because that's something that I think, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's something that was given to you, rather than you creating it yourself. Because when I see your work, it's all down. I bow down. Because to me, it's high.
Wow, that's an honor.
Yeah, tell me.
That's a big honor. If you guys don't mind, I'd like to take this one. All right, so we've held we've had some talks as brothers who are still doing graph, and we've held them up north, and we all came together, and we all have already identified that the term graffiti, or the graffito in the original meaning, does not accurately describe what we do, especially here in the States. It's something that's looked at as unwanted, undesired. It has so many negative things that are associated with it that to me, it doesn't allow it to move forward because of that. So my brother Create and I had come and made some talks about it, and one of the things we chose to call it is urban hieroglyphics. And looking at, that's respecting the ancestors who first did it. When they did it, they were telling a story. You go into these pyramids. Now, although I haven't yet visited them, I will be doing that maybe within the next year or so. I want to see what the story was. It tells to depict what was going on at that time. They use characters and letters to convey a story. And that's exactly what we're doing. The urban aspect of it is because we grew up in an urban environment, simply as plain. So using that urban hieroglyphics, where some of our letters are not even readable, undecipherable, because we were trying to get it was a secret. We only wanted to pass it off to those people who needed to know. And then there's times when we simply make it very simple for everyone because the message has to be very clear. So I appreciate that, because that does bring credence to what I've been about in the renaming of it. There's other aspects, other artists have called it stylized writing. from my New York brothers who were doing it in the 60s and 70s. And they said, hey, we were doing stylized writing. And that's what we were doing. And we then changed it into writing. And, you know, when I told them even about that, I wanted to make certain I had their blessings. So when I brought it to my older writers and I spoke with them, I said, how does the urban hieroglyphics fit for you? Would that be an accurate description of what you were doing prior to me? And they all agreed. So, urban hieroglyphics, rocking the nation.
You guys have such rich history. Is there any talks of any of you guys have any documentation?
Could everyone hear that question?
Yeah. Documentary.
I didn't hear it.
The possibility of creating a documentary, right, of their history.
Yeah, I think that would be good because there's a crew like in New York called the FX Crew, and they have a documentary talking about who they are and their contribution to the aerosol movement. And there's another crew in Los Angeles called the CBS Crew. They have a movie or a short or a documentary, and it talks about a lot of their key players and members, and that makes them who they are. So we definitely, this way it goes back to the last question about having a voice. So that's a good thing because this way, if we do have a documentary or some kind of short film about who we are, then the world can see it not just here in the United States, but international, and that'll be